Hello, good evening. We're now learning Sotah, page 41, Daf Mem Aleph, Amud Aleph, and the Gemara continues when we're talking about the Kohen Gadol and Yom Kippur. The Gemara says, the Koyde Achrei Mois, and he reads the Parsha of Achrei Mois. This is after the end of his day, when he does all of his service in the Beis Hamikdash. So he reads the portion of Achrei Mois and Ach Ba'asar. They're both in the Parsha of Achrei Mois. And then the Gemara asks a question, Ramino asks a question. It says that in the V'im, when you're reading the prophets, you're allowed to skip from one prophet to another, or from one chapter to another. But in the Torah, you're not allowed to skip. So how we were able to skip? Because the two portions he read in the Torah were not one consecutive after. Abaye says it's not a question. When you can turn the page quick enough. By the time the translator, which was common than a translator, used to translate, didn't finish before he finished translation, that's good. But if it will take too long, you don't want to, it's not the honor to be able to be sitting quietly. So therefore, you don't skip when it takes too long to roll the Torah. The Gemara says you can't say that because we learned specifically that in Navi, you're allowed to skip, but you're not allowed to skip in Torah. And in the Navi, they say how much you're allowed to skip. Enough that the translator is not yet finished. The meaning in Torah, even when the translator is not yet finished, you're not allowed to skip. And you have to go only consecutively. So Abaye says it's not a question. When it's both in the same subject matter, you're allowed to skip, as long as it can be done before the translator finishes. But it's in two matters, you're not allowed to skip in Torah, even if the translator is not finished translating, you're not allowed to skip. And we bring a brisa that is proof for that it says that you skip in Torah in one subject, in prophets in two subjects, but both of them in a time when the translator is still not finished his translation. But in the Navi, you're not allowed to skip from one prophet to another. Within a prophet, you're allowed to skip, but you're not allowed to skip from one prophet to another, except in the 12 prophets, which that's a book which has 12 prophets in it. As long as you don't go from the beginning till the end, you're allowed to skip. Now the Gemara continues, and you roll the Torah and you leave, and he puts it in his by his chest. So why do you have to roll the Torah and put it by his chest? So he's trying to say that even though the next portion I'm going to read by heart, it's not because it's not written in the Torah, but I'm holding the Torah dear. This Torah is perfect, and it's not that the Torah has anything wrong with it, and therefore we're not reading the next portion from it. The reason they don't read the next portion from it, it's too far to read, so therefore you don't read it. And then he reads. What does he read then? Not in the Torah, but by heart. He reads that it says in the part of the book of Bamidbar. Of Asar, it says what happens in the 10th day of the month. So he reads by heart. So the Gemara says, why doesn't he actually roll the Torah and read it from the Torah? He says because he can't roll the Torah in the community and make them wait. It's not honor for the community. So why don't we bring two Torahs? So the Rabbunas in the name of Yehuda says because they'll think the reason we're reading a second Torah is the first Torah is not good. We found something wrong with it. So Shimon Malakar says another reason, because you don't want to make extra bracha. And if you open up a second Torah, you have to make a new bracha. So the Gemara says, are we really worried that when you take a second Torah, we're going to say, the second Torah is not good? That's why you're taking a second Torah, because the first Torah is not good. Didn't Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha say that on Rosh Chodesh Tevis, when Rosh Chodesh Tevis is on Shabbos, so you have three things, and we read three different Torahs. One you read from Shabbos, the other one we read of Rosh Chodesh, the new month, the other one we read of Hanukkah. So the Gemara answers, when you have three Torahs of three different people, it's not a problem. But the same person, the Kohen Gadol, reads from two Torahs, there you can say maybe it's a problem, and that's why I read from two Torahs. Now we say the Kohen made blessings, so he makes the blessing of the Torah like we make always by the Torah, nice not Torah. And then he makes the Avodah, and the regular blessings that we do, Ritzei, and Moedim, and Mechilosav, and this is the middle one, Mechalav, we say no, they should forgive us, which is the main blessing of Yom Kippur. Then he makes a special blessing that Hashem chose in the Beis Hamikdash. Then he makes a blessing that Hashem chose the Kohanim. Then he makes a blessing that Hashem chose the Israelites. And then he makes a blessing on Jerusalem that Hashem chose Jerusalem. And the rest is tefillah. Tefillah means prayer. What is prayer? So we learned that it means that we turn to Hashem and we ask Him that He should answer, like Shema Kerleinu. We should answer, listen to our voice, and answer for what we need. And we finish the blessing. Shema Tefillah, He listens to our prayers. After he finishes a blessing, everyone used to bring their own Sefer Torah from their own house, and they used to read in it In the Azara, they used to bring it. The Yerushalayim had an Eruv. Why? To be able to show the Torah publicly, show the beauty of the Torah publicly, the time to glorify Torah. Now there's a new mission. The mission says that was the Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur. But also there's a time when the king reads in the Beis Hamikdash. When does he read? Matzah Yom Tov, at the end of the first day, part of the holiday of Sukkot, in the 8th year, in the year after Shemitah, they used to make a bima. They used to make a big stage in the Azara, inside of the place where the Jews would gather, and the king would sit there. Like it says, at the end of 7 years, he sits there, and then the Chazan HaKnesses is the one who sets up the table for the reading. He takes the Torah and he gives it to the one who's in charge of giving out all the honors. And that the one in charge of giving honors gives it to the deputy Kohen Gadol, the high priest, and the Kohen Gadol gives it to the high priest, and the high priest gives it to the king, and the king receives it standing, and then he sits and he reads. So we know a story that Griffith Samela, who was the king during which time the second temple was destroyed, he was a grandson of Hordus. Hordus, Judaism was very questionable. He came from a people that were actually slaves for the Jews that came around in the time of the Hashmonaim, the times of the aftermath of the war with the Greeks. So he received the Torah and he remained standing and he didn't sit down. And the rabbis praised him that he was standing. And when he came to the verse, they're not allowed to appoint upon himself, because one of the things that the king reads is the laws about appointing a king. It says you're not allowed to appoint upon yourself a non-Jew. So he started to cry because his grandfather heard this questionable if he was a Jew. So the rabbis told him, don't cry because you're a brother, because his mother was clearly from a Jewish family. What does he read? So he reads from the beginning of the book of Deuteronomy until Shema, and then he skips the Bahaya and Shema, the second portion of Shema, and then Aser Tas, he reads about the tithings, because this was the time connected to the tithings, and when you finish tithing, what you're supposed to do, and he reads the portion about appointing a king, and the blessings and the curses, and then he's the blessing and the curses, and he makes the same 8 blessings that the Kohen Gadol says, but he adds one more. I'm sorry, he exchanges the blessing of the Kohen Gadol for Yom Kippur about Hashem for atoning, forgiving, to the blessing for the holidays. The Gemara says, why does it say B'Shmini in the 8th year? Is it something connected to 8? Why does it say in the 8th year, after Shemitah, all the details? It says like this: if it were just said at the end of the 8th year, I would say that the Jews had to count, from when they were told this, when it was the last year they were in the desert, they start counting right away at 7 years in the 8th year. But really, this only was following when they started to do the Shemitah, which was 14 years after they already had arrived to Israel. That's when they started to count the sabbatical cycle. So therefore it says, Mikates at the end of the counting of the Shemitah. And if they would have said just Shemitah, we would think at the end of the 7th year. So therefore it says B'moed, the beginning of the 8th year in the holiday. So if it would say only in the holiday, we would think maybe Rosh Hashanah or the first holiday of the 8th year. It says B'chag HaSukkos in the holiday of Sukkot. And if it was said only holiday of Sukkot, I would think that maybe at the end of the whole holiday after Shmini Atzeres. Therefore it says when all the Jewish people come, when is that? In the beginning of Sukkot. So every one of this comes to tell us it's clearly it's once they started counting the sabbatical cycle, and after a full sabbatical, not at the end of that year, but the next year, the 8th year, at the beginning of the year, which is Sukkot, and the day after the holiday, that's when they used to do it, because they couldn't build a bima on the day of the holiday, and Erev Yom Tov was not a time to build a bima either. They were busy with a lot of other things as well. So now the Gemara continues. So the Chazan HaKnesses is the one who sets it all up, takes the Torah, gives it to the one who's in charge of all the honors. So that means, so many people give it one to another before it gets to the king. That means we're giving honor to people even when the head person is there. Usually we think when the big cheese is there, you don't give the honor to anyone else. But here we see you give honor to everyone, even in front of someone who's greater. So we answer with the Kohen Gadol that it was all done to show the greatness of the king, that there were so many levels under him, to show the honor of the king. Now, then he says that the king is standing, and then he sits down to read. So Griffith stood up, and then he read. So it means the Gemara asks a question. Griffith was sitting, and then he stood up. we said that only the kings from the house of David are allowed to sit in the Azara. But any other kings, and Griffiths didn't come from the house of David. He came from the Chashmonai outcome, which was not the house of David. How could he be sitting? So we said it wasn't in the real Azara, it was in the women's section, which there everyone was allowed to sit, and the king was allowed to sit as well. So why did he praise him? There's a general rule: a leader who wants to forgive on his honor is allowed to forgive. But a king cannot forgive in his honor. So if the king is supposed to sit, that's the honor they're supposed to have for the king. He's not allowed to forgive in his honor and stand. So we answered that for a mitzvah, he's allowed to forgive in his honor, and here he's doing a mitzvah of reading the Torah. When he came to the verse, they're not allowed to point a non-Jew, so he cried. The Gemara says like this, and then the rabbis told him, no, don't worry, you're our brother, you're our brother. So it says at that moment, the Jewish people deserved punishment because they flattered him with lies. What does it mean? Because the truth is, his father wasn't part of the kingly family, and he shouldn't have been the king. So Rav Shimon Son of Chalapta says, we're talking about several things related to flattery, that the day that they flattered Agrippus, and that moment when it happened, when he read the Torah and they said, you're a brother, you're a brother, so all of a sudden it affected that all the judgments started to go wrong. And all the actions of the people, meaning people no more cared about what's right and wrong, and the judges weren't judging right, and the rabbis weren't stopping the people when they were doing something wrong, and people were saying, it's all right to behave wrong, badly, and it's not a problem. Rabbi Yehuda from Myra, from the Israel said, some say Shimon the son of Pazi, that you're allowed to flatter wicked people in this world. Because we told the verse that when Mashiach will come, you're not allowed to show any flattery. But in this world, you're allowed to show flattery because sometimes the wicked people, their mazel, their luck shines, you're allowed to show flattery. And Rav Shimon, the son of Lakish, says, we learned it actually from Yaakov. Because when Yaakov went to meet Esau, when Esau wanted to kill him, and Yaakov tried to flatter him and to actually to appease him, he shouldn't kill him. He says, when I look at you, it's like I'm looking at the face of God, and it's a pleasure. So it's flattery. But actually, Rav Levi is of the opinion that Yaakov was not showing flattery taste of lying to him how nicely, how lying to him about how happy he was to see him. Yaakov knew that Esau wanted to kill him. So he told Esau that when I see you, it reminds me of it's like someone says that I tasted your food, it reminds me of the taste when I was in the king's palace. What it means to the guy says, oh, this guy's in the king's palace, I'm not going to start with him. So Yaakov was saying, I've seen angels. When I look at you, I look like an angel. Esau will say, oh, this guy looks at angels. Oh, I don't want to start with him. So he wasn't flattering him. He was just trying to put him in his place that I'm not scared of you. You may think twice if you want to kill me. Rabbi Lazar says, everyone who has flattery brings anger to the world, and your prayer is not listened to. And we continue to say a few more things of flattery. Rabbi Lazar said, whoever has flattery, even the children in the mother's womb curse them out. Also, it says anyone who has flattery, he falls into Gehenna, falls into purgatory. And then Rabbi Lezer said, whoever performs flattery or flattery on a friend, he will end up falling into his friend, meaning his friend will end up doing him in. And if he doesn't fall, if his friend doesn't do him in, his friend's son will do him in. And his friend's son doesn't do him in, his grandson will do him in. And we bring a proof from Yirmiyah. Because Yirmiyah told to Hananiah Navi told him that the Yirmiyah said to Hananiah Navi, said that there's Hananiah said that a lie. He said that they're going to be returning the vessels of the Beis Hamikdash in a few days. So Yirmiyah was flattered him, and he didn't point out that it was a lie. He said, "May Hashem keep your words," even though he knew it wasn't true. And then it says that when he went out of Jerusalem, he wanted to go and he had to take an inheritance. So he was captured, and he fell into the hands of who? Of Hananiah's grandson. So we see that ultimately he showed flattery, and it ended up hurting him, because flattery never works. So thank you very much. Have a good evening, and let's keep learning all the time. Good night.